king, baby.
Borderlands the pre-sequel is the red-headed stepchild, the black sheep of the Borderlands family, if you will, or at the very least the original before we got Wonderlands. Pre-sequel succeeds in many of the same ways that the original Borderlands did. It's tightly designed into small to medium-sized open worlds and avoids the fluff of Borderlands 2's slag-infested in-game grind. Instead, it trades it out for a simple invincible boss in a few arenas. Pre-sequel's one and only expansion, Claptastic Voyage, is by far one of, if not the best DLC offering in the series. The look into Claptrap's motherboard and all the traumatic data stored therein, it's quite a fun and interesting homage to the original game and Borderlands history through the eyes of our favorite little robot buddy. Pre-sequel shines on the moon due to the ability to freeze enemies, use zero-G environments to add variety to combat and exploration, or even use O2 boosters as jetpacks. But also add a strategy, because if you're anyone except for Claptrap, you need oxygen to breathe. So when your O2 meter depletes, you will start losing health. There's shields that drop items to replenish your O2 and other cool things you can use to make oxygen bubbles. The other thing that really defines pre-sequel is how Australian it is. It was developed by 2K Australia, and they knew what they were doing, not only from a game design standpoint, but also in the story and the humor. 2K Australia got into developing Borderlands, and they somehow made an even more Firefly-like world. It's more sci-fi western minus the Mad Max elements of the original game.
As Irrational Games Australia way back in 1999, we're celebrating our 15-year anniversary this year. Same as Gearbox, it's a kind of a funny coincidence. We just kind of wrapped up 10 years of development on Bioshock 1, 2 and Bioshock Infinite last year, and that's when we came about working on this game, Borderlands the pre-sequel.
The way it generally works is, I think a lot of the design and narrative stuff is handled over here. We have a lot of really talented art guys over in Dallas who handle a lot of the direction, which we then kind of implement over here. So there's a lot of different studios working on this, and we have to sort of juggle between it, but it seems to work pretty well.
We've found a lot of similarities between the way we work, to the point where our strengths just come out naturally.
I never would have expected that Australians would get along really well with Texans. There's just something between our two studios. We seem to get each other pretty well.
Elpis is even more of a space frontier that was abandoned way before Pandora was abandoned. Pre-sequel holds onto the heart of Borderlands and tries to stick to what made it stand out from the crowd. Let my friend Gamer Guy Reviews tell you all about it.
When I played the first Borderlands and its sequel years ago, I remember having a rough time getting through both games. My experience with FPSs was limited, as was my experience with RPGs, and those early hours playing Borderlands 1 and 2 were spent dying over and over and over. However, once I got a better grasp of the mechanics, that frustration turned to joy as I grew to love the gameplay and Borderlands' unique style. I played the hell out of the pre-sequel when I got it for Christmas, but after I beat it, it went up on my shelf and stayed there for the next decade. So when Deadforge asked me if I wanted to review Borderlands the pre-sequel, I jumped at the opportunity. I didn't know what to expect when I booted up the pre-sequel, but I was surprised by how well the game holds up. Borderlands the pre-sequel might be Borderlands 2, but on the moon, but 2K Australia came up with clever ways to expand on 2's gameplay, namely zero gravity. Jumping across the environment in zero-G and ground-pounding enemies is lots of fun. It gives the combat an extra degree of mobility and the levels added verticality. You can launch yourself from a jump pad and hover in the air while picking off bandits. Pop a bandit's helmet with a well-placed bullet, and he'll take damage from a lack of oxygen in addition to the bullets being pumped into his body. Managing your oxygen is easy thanks to the abundance of oxygen canisters and oxygen domes. Never once did keeping track of my air feel tedious, and there's plenty of interior action, so you're not exclusively fighting in the cold vacuum of space. Another fun inclusion is the grinder. This device lets you combine items of the same rarity together to make something new. Mixing and matching gear together is addicting and fits with Borderlands' gotta loot 'em all mentality. Plus it means your old gear doesn't go to waste. Elpis itself is a welcome change from Pandora. The cracked moonscapes and myriad colors give what could have been just a generic moon lots of character. Borderlands the pre-sequel was one of the last 7th-gen games, and it uses the hardware to great effect. Elpis is also unique in that it's based Australia. No, seriously, almost everyone that lives on Elpis is Australian, so your eardrums are constantly peppered with Aussie slang. They could have taken the easy route and repurposed Borderlands 2's dialogue, so I'm glad they gave Elpis its own culture and vibe. I'd say Borderlands the pre-sequel's biggest stumble is it's more of the same. That's not a bad thing if you're a die-hard Borderlands fan, but for the average Joe who's never played a Borderlands game, you'd be better off playing the original or Borderlands 2. Borderlands the pre-sequel is also short on replay value. Borderlands is not just a one-and-done game. You're expected to play through the campaign multiple times to get better gear, take on deadlier enemies, and make your Vault Hunter the ultimate badass. The pre-sequel lacks that incentive, and once you've seen Handsome Jack's rise to power once, there's not much point doing it all over again. Still, I'm glad I revisited Borderlands the pre-sequel. It was a fun trip down memory lane as I blasted and looted my way through Elpis. This game reminded me of, among other things, getting the strategy guide for a penny at a GameStop, and when I wrote a character analysis paper for my high school English class that used Handsome Jack as the point of analysis. True story, got an A- on the paper if I remember correctly. It's a good game to scratch that Borderlands itch, but for something with a little more substance, stick with Borderlands 2. Huge thanks to Deadforge for inviting me on for this collab. Dude's underrated as hell, and his channel deserves more love.
Thanks for the shout out, thanks for all the love, and thanks for the fantastic review of the most misunderstood Borderlands game out there. Now that GamerGuy Reviews and myself have went over all the important stuff, let's dive into the thing that really makes pre-sequels special. Borderlands the pre-sequel is unique for being both a sequel to Borderlands 1 and a prequel to Borderlands 2, therefore a pre-sequel. It also shares much of the original charm and more confined design of the original game, with the gameplay and story improvements of the second one. Not only that, but it's a pretty deep origin story delving into the descent into madness of Handsome Jack. It adds a lot to later events in the series, even small ones like how the Threshers of Borderlands 2 are actually an invasive species, and a juvenile Thresher sent to Pandora named Terry eventually became Terramorphous the Invincible. As a big fan of the series, that was a really cool revelation. It may seem minor, it was actually quite a massive piece of information that was really cool. Pre-sequel is ultimately a very entertaining and fun game experience. It didn't have any bloat and got straight to the point. It actually provided a lot of backstory for the Iridians and left the series on a wild cliffhanger that was never touched on again. I actually really hoped that they went off of that cliffhanger with Borderlands 3 because technically certain aspects of the very beginning and very end of pre-sequel actually take place after Borderlands 2.
Only once. Why? That is a long story.
And Borderlands 3 just never really touched on it, which was kind of disappointing, so I hope it comes back eventually for Borderlands 4. You could use the loot grinder machine to grind up 3 weapons to make another one of a higher rarity, a mechanic that is still exclusive to the pre-sequel. You can fight a Godzilla-like enemy inside a lava-filled cave very early in the game, and it's actually one of my favorite secrets, not gonna lie. It's pretty awesome. The hover cars, jump pads, and overall gameplay variety is some of the best in the entire series. That includes the skill trees, which in the case of Wilhelm can have him completely evolve into a cyborg throughout the course of the game. Every character felt great, including the Baroness and Jack's doppelganger. Even Claptrap was a wild party trick of a character who was truly unpredictable. Starting the game on Helios Station and visiting the Hyperion hub of heroism are highlights of the adventure. Getting to play the villains back when they were anti-heroes is really cool, and a nice change of pace. Vault Hunters aren't good guys, but they're always painted in a better light than they should be. Borderlands the pre-sequel may have its issues and bugs, especially in the original release, and while it doesn't offer a better story than Borderlands 2, it's still an overlooked diamond in the series, worthy of your attention and praise. It's a fun romp and a good time. At the end of the day, what more can you ask for? Borderlands has always been about the irreverent humor and stupidity of its fun gameplay and world. This game offers more of that for you to enjoy to your heart's content. I'm happy I finally got this collaboration with Gamer Guy Reviews out, and I want to thank all of you for the love and support. We're on our way to 900 subscribers, and I have so many fun plans. So thank you all, and of course thanks to Osh, Midnight Medium, and Melancholy Geek for the continued patronage over at Patreon, which will be linked below. If you all enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you liked the video and hit subscribe, so that way you get notified for future videos, and I get to know that you enjoyed it. Now the Forge is calling, and as you know, I must answer. So I'll see you all when the next video has been forged.